Hi, I'm Chris from Untangled Pearls, and behind the camera we have Suzanne.
Hello.
And if you hear a little noise in the background, it's her son Gideon. He's 5 years old, so he's happily playing right now. We don't know how long it's going to last. I want to thank everybody for joining us in our first virtual knit along. And this is my first tutorial video. Little nervous, as you can tell. We picked Moonwake KAL by Drea Renee Knits. It's a beautiful KAL. You can see I have it on. This one here was made by our own Pam in the shop using Rowan's Alpaca Soft DK. It is so soft and warm and squishy. And I know I looked off camera thinking, what was Gideon doing? The first step in the provisional in this project is a provisional cast on. Okay, so what is a provisional cast on? Provisional cast on is a method of casting on that is designed to let you keep your first row of stitches live. This way, later on, towards the end, you can pick those stitches up and start working them. You can knit, let's say you got to add some extra length, you want to put a decorative edge on, or you need to graft two pieces of material together, like with the Kitchener stitch, which is exactly what we're going to do. When we finish knitting this tube, we're going to take the ending edge and the cast on edge, and we're going to Kitchener them together to create the KAL. Now, my preferred method for a provisional cast on is the crochet over the knitting needle directly. I like it for 3 reasons. First, I don't have to pick up stitches. There's the method where you chain and you pick up the back bump on the crochet. Unfortunately, I have a tendency to, number one, either split the stitch or rotate my chain and pick up the wrong bump, and then later on I can't get it to unzip. And second, this is very easy to unzip, and it's a one-step process. Once I'm done putting it on the needle, I'm ready to go. I don't have to do anything else. Now, the key for a successful cast on, just like the key for knitting, is not splitting your yarn, but finding the air in the holes and going into. Now, what are we going to need for this? We're going to need waste yarn. It can be any color, any type, other than pure wool. You want a superwash, acrylic, cotton, whatever, because you don't want it to be sticky. You don't want it to felt to the other yarn. A crochet hook. You can use numerous sizes. It really doesn't matter. You just want it to be that it'll grab the yarn for you. And then you need your knitting needles. Other than that, we're ready to go, and give me a moment and we'll show you. Okay, I'm back here now, and I have my yarn, my crochet hook, and my knitting needle. Now, we're going to start this with a simple slip knot. Now, I'm assuming everybody knows how to do a slip knot. If you don't, there's a lot of videos out there on YouTube to handle that one. Now, if you notice, I did not make it tight. I want to be able to easily go into it with your crochet hook. I'm going to go up, I'm going to grab the yarn, and I'm going to rotate my needle downward so I can pull it through the loop easily. And then I rotate it back up. I grab the yarn, I rotate down, pull it through the loop, and then put it back up.
Chris, a little bit of a crochet tip for everybody. If you work in the shaft of the crochet hook, it's going to keep it tighter. So if you have tension issues, use that barrel where it gets a little bit thicker.
You're talking right here, Susan, right?
Yes.
Susan? Yeah.
It'll help keep that stitch a little bit looser.
Okay. Thank you for that tip, Suzanne. Okay. Now, I've done 3/4 of the crochet chain stitches. Now we're going to add the knitting needle into the works. Now I did that because everybody knows that first row or two, the first cast on a couple stitches, the first row or two of knitting or crocheting is always floppy and difficult. So I like to do a little bit of a chain stitch so that I can have something to hold on to when I'm getting ready to start with my needle. So as you can see, I have that little piece of chain and my needle in one hand with the thumb holding it down. It gives me a little tension right here. Now I can go around the needle and pull through. So we're doing the same motion. The only difference is I have to move the yarn each time around the needle and pull through. So I'm taking the yarn between the two needles, between the crochet hook and the needle, wrap it around, pull it through. Now, I am an old crocheter, so I am used to carrying my yarn in my left hand. If you are not, you can do it right-handed or English style, whatever you want to call it. You can grab it like this, bring it around, and then grab it and pull it through. Bring it around, grab it, and pull through. Now you can see I'm a little more awkward because I don't do this as much with my right hand, but there's no difference in the method.
So Chris, effectively what you're doing, to use just a little bit of crochet terminology, is you're doing a slip stitch around the knitting needle, correct?
Exactly. We're just incorporating a slip stitch or a chain, whatever you want to call it, around the needle so it becomes part of it. Now, in the Moonwake pattern, it tells us to cast on 85 stitches, excuse me. Now, I like a safety net for myself because God knows I make enough mistakes. So I usually cast on 1 to 2 extra stitches. So I will probably cast on 86 stitches for the Moonwake. So if by chance I mess up one of the stitches and I have to skip it or drop it, I have an extra one and I don't have to rip out and start all over again. And if I'm good and I go all the way to the end without making a mistake, I can then just drop that extra stitch off my needle and it won't hurt anything. Now let's say we have all the stitches on that we want. Okay, we're done. Now we're going to take this and we're going to go back to creating that chain stitch without the needle. We're going to go in, we're going to grab it. Okay, and then put the needle to the side a little bit. I'm going to chain a couple. I usually do 3 or 4. And then at the last one, I open up nice and big. I kind of stick my finger in it. Now you can either cut. Everybody knows me, knows I just break the yarn, and just like we do it when we're finishing a knitted cast on, we're going to slip it through. Now we're going to need to know which yarn end this is. So, because later on we need this end so we can unzip. So I always tie like a little bow on the end. So I know this is the ending yarn that I want to take out later to unzip. Trust me, sometimes you say, oh, I can remember because one's longer than the other. Well, when you get done with the project 2 weeks later, you now forgot. I've done it a number of times. So definitely put the little slip knot into there. Okay, so now you have your provisional cast on. Now you're ready. Now we can join. Hi, so we're back now and we're going to talk about joining in around and doing technically the second row. I have knitted all my cast on stitches, okay, with the new yarn that's actually going to be used in my project. I made all 85 stitches without making a mistake. I have the one extra that I left that I put on, and I can just drop it off. No harm, no foul. Now we want to join in the round. If you notice, I have all my stitches, all my cast on edge in the same area. There's no twist you don't want any twist. Okay, usually I go to the inside, but because my cast on yarn is thicker, it's making it more, it's too crowded inside, so I had to put it to the outside. Now, you're going to be knitting. Your yarn should be in your right hand. Okay, now the pattern has you knit the first 2 stitches together. It's going to bring it down to 1 knit. Oh, I made a mistake. We want to put in a stitch marker. Stop. Let me have the stitch marker. So here it is. Put a stitch marker for the beginning of the round. Now, make it a unique stitch marker to anything else you may use. Your yarn's going to be coming from the right needle. If you knit English style, I'll knit English style for a moment, even though I do mostly continental. You're going to knit the first 2 stitches together. Okay, the reason we do that is when you do a provisional cast on and you pick up the stitches later, you're actually knitting the opposite direction, so there's a half stitch off. So that adjustment makes for the half stitch. All right, so now we are just going to knit around, but you are now already joined. You are connected. The key is just to make sure that you are knitting in around. Now I will say, on the future, you will have another video coming forward that will talk about color work. And I would tell you to have plenty of stitch markers ready. All right, the pattern repeat is 12 stitches. You want a stitch marker for every one, especially for beginner knitters. But you also want to make sure this beginning of the round stitch marker is unique to itself. Okay, follow up. We'll have another video coming out soon. Bye.
Bye.